In the beginning, I had a problem that was more severe than dyslexia. I was a Canner's baby as a child. Dr. Leo Canner's coined the word autism. I was not ever actually officially labeled as autistic. I was only labeled as a Canner's baby, although the physicians use Canner's syndrome as a diagnosis for autism. I actually developed out of the autistic state. Educationally, I was labeled uneducatably mentally retarded, and I didn't get that label until I was 12 years old. The reason the label was delayed was that my mother prevented them from labeling me. So, up until I was 17 years old, I and everyone else that was aware of me believed that I was mentally retarded. At the age of 17, I scored quite high on an IQ test, and at that point the decision was made that I would learn how to speak. So I experienced speech therapy. A lot of the techniques that we have, a lot of the ambiance of facilitation is a duplication of my speech therapist. Her name was Dr. Meredith Evans, and I wish she would have lived long enough to see what we're doing now, because I think she would be quite proud of what we're doing. I learned how to talk when I was 17 in sentences. I couldn't learn how to read. Now, I actually had two problems. I had the autism that I did develop out of, but I also had dyslexia, and I didn't develop out of that. I was given wrong information. I was told that the reason I couldn't learn how to read and write was that I had brain damage, and I accepted that. I mean, it was very easy. All I had to do was look around at other people, and I could see that I was different and that I was being treated different, and so it was very easy to understand that. And it wasn't until much later, after I'd been certified as an engineer, I had retired from real estate, and I was then working as an artist, that the symptoms that I had for the dyslexia, I realized that I could intentionally cause a change in the symptom. And the engineer in me said, wait, now if the reason I have a problem is that I have brain damage from birth, that brain damage doesn't go away. It's there all the time, so the symptoms have to be consistent. And what I realized was that I was deliberately changing the characteristic, or changing the symptom. And what that indicated to me was that the problem isn't a structural problem, that the problem had to be a functional problem. And if that's the case, then I'm either doing something that causes the problem, or I'm failing to do something that causes the problem. And in realizing that, then it's personal. And now I have a challenge to figure out what I'm doing that makes it happen, or what I'm not doing to make it happen. And with that challenge is when I became a researcher into dyslexia. And once I started looking inside of myself for an answer, it didn't take long for me to find an answer. About 36 hours of looking. And what I discovered was, at the time we called it comfort zone. Now we realize that it was a rudimentary form of a reorientation. And in an oriented state, the words didn't move, and the words were all the same size, and there were spaces between the letters, and there was punctuation marks there. And when everything was stable and large, and I didn't have to figure out where one word ended and the next one began, I could actually read. And the day I made that discovery, I actually read a whole book in one day. And I had never really read a whole book in my whole life up until then, much less doing it in a day. I mean, it was beyond my ability to imagine that I could do something like that, and I did it. So, and I made the mistake of thinking I had cured myself of dyslexia, only to find out later that all I had done was found a piece to a puzzle.